My sister gave my son bread while her kids ate $100 steaks at our family dinner, so I stood up, and what I did next made her tremble in fear. "We didn't order for your son," my sister said, handing him a bread basket while her kids ate $100 steaks and dessert. My dad added, "You should have packed him something." I just smiled and said, "Noted." When the waiter came back, I stood up and announced, "I've spent most of my adult life cleaning up after my sister's messes. Financial, emotional, even babysitting her kids while she went on her last-minute emergency getaways. I did it without much thanks, always hearing the same line from our parents, 'She's going through a lot,' as if I wasn't. Jill's life has always been one dramatic mess after another, but somehow she still manages to land softly because someone else is always catching her, usually me and our parents. They act like she's this fragile, helpless creature who can't be held accountable for anything. Meanwhile, I'm the reliable one, the stable one, the one who never gets a break. So when I offered to pay for our parents' 40th anniversary dinner, a night I genuinely hoped would be a peaceful gathering, it was a big deal. I booked the best steakhouse in town, arranged for a private room, and planned to surprise them with a framed photo from their wedding day I had restored. It wasn't about making a statement. I just wanted a night where everyone sat down, shared a meal, and acted like a family. Instead, I walked into a firing squad of indifference. We arrived 5 minutes early. My son Mason held my hand as we walked in, excited in his shy, quiet way. He kept asking if it was okay to order dessert. I told him he could have whatever he wanted. Inside, Jill and her family were already seated. Doug had a drink in hand. Their boys were loudly playing some game on their tablets. Jill didn't stand up. She just looked over her shoulder and said, "Oh, hey." My mom gave me a distracted hug. My dad stayed seated and barely acknowledged me. No one asked how Mason was. No one even looked at the bag I was holding with their gift. We sat down. I helped Mason unfold his napkin and started looking over the menu with him. He pointed at the chicken tenders and smiled. I was about to flag down the waiter when Jill leaned over, pulled the bread basket toward Mason, and said, "We didn't order for your son." She said it like it was normal. I blinked. I thought maybe she misunderstood, but then my dad chimed in like it was obvious. "You should have packed him something if you knew he'd be hungry." That was the moment, not just the words, but the casual tone, the way Mason's face fell just slightly, the silence from my mom who didn't even glance up from her water. Jill's smug little smirk like she had scored some kind of point. I sat there for a few seconds, and I realized something I probably should have accepted years ago. They weren't going to change, but I could. I waved the waiter over. When he arrived, I stood and said, "Please cancel any orders that haven't been sent to the kitchen and put everything that's already on the way on my father's bill. It's his anniversary after all." You could hear a pin drop. Then I looked right at the waiter again and added, "Also, my son will have the ribeye, medium rare, with the truffle mac and a Coke. Make it quick, please." Doug coughed like he'd swallowed his drink wrong. Jill just stared at me like she couldn't believe what she'd heard. My mom opened her mouth, then closed it. Uncle Gary let out a single laugh, just one, low and slow. Aunt Denise didn't even try to hide her smile. The waiter nodded and walked off. I sat down like nothing had happened and handed Mason a breadstick. He took it, still quiet, but I could see it. He knew I'd stood up for him. Dinner went on, but the mood had shifted. Jill's kids were whining about their orders being delayed. Doug was whispering in her ear. My parents kept glancing at each other like they were trying to decide if they should say something. I didn't care anymore. The bill came. My dad stared at it like it was an insult. He didn't say thank you. He didn't even look at me. As we got up to leave, I gave the framed wedding photo to the waiter and asked him to set it on the table when we were gone. I grabbed Mason's hand. As we were walking out, I accidentally bumped into the dessert tray. A plate shattered. I didn't apologize. That night, my phone blew up. Calls, texts, voicemails, all of them angry. Jill asked what my problem was. My dad demanded I reimburse him. My mom said I embarrassed them. I ignored every message until the next day when they said they were coming over. They didn't even text first. They just pulled into my driveway like it was their house and marched right up the steps. My parents and Jill. Doug was suspiciously absent. Probably smart on his part. He always seemed to vanish when real conversations needed to happen. Mason saw them through the window before I did. He didn't say anything, just looked up at me with that same tired expression I'd started to recognize in myself. I didn't panic. I didn't try to clean up the house or smooth things over. I just picked up the phone and called Uncle Gary. "They're here," I said. "We'll be there in 10, he replied. No questions, no drama, just like always. I opened the front door before they could ring the bell. My mom walked in first, like she was the one who owned the place. Jill followed, her arms folded, jaw tight. My dad was last, holding a manila envelope like it was some kind of contract I was about to be served. No one said hello, no one looked at Mason, who was sitting on the couch pretending to play on his Switch but listening to every word. Jill opened her mouth the second they were all inside. "You embarrassed the entire family last night," she said, like it was a fact, like I had ruined some sacred ritual by refusing to let my son be treated like a stray dog begging at the table. I didn't respond. My mom jumped in. "You made a scene. You disrespected your father. We've never been so humiliated in public." That was laughable. These are the same people who once had a screaming match at a Chili's over a forgotten coupon. But sure, I was the disgrace. My dad placed the envelope on the counter and gave it a little tap. "That's the invoice for the restaurant's private room, $1,000. Since you bailed on your responsibility, we expect you to pay your share." The entitlement was insane. I didn't touch the envelope. I just said, "Wait here," and walked off. 2 minutes later, the side door opened, and Uncle Gary and Aunt Denise walked in. They didn't bother with hellos either. They knew what this was. My mom's smile dropped the second she saw them. Jill muttered something under her breath. My dad looked like he had just swallowed something sour. I went back to the kitchen and stood across from them. "I've decided I'm done supporting Jill," I said. "No build-up, no apology, just the truth. She's not my child, I'm not her safety net. I've been covering half her rent for the better part of a year. That ends today. If she and Doug want to stay in their apartment, Doug can pick up the slack or she can move." Jill started raising her voice, but I didn't even look at her. My mom turned to Uncle Gary, trying to pull him into it, saying he should stay out of private family matters. Denise stepped in before he could respond. She didn't yell, she didn't even raise her voice. She calmly listed everything I'd done for Jill over the years, the money, the child care, the emotional labor, and then asked one simple question: "When's the last time any of you helped Linda?" No one answered. I finally picked up the envelope, opened it, and scanned the invoice. $1,000 even. "Here's what I'll do," I said. "I'll give you $500, not out of obligation but out of pure pettiness, just to make sure I can sleep tonight knowing you didn't get the whole thing." My dad's hand hit the counter. My mom's face twisted into some mix of sadness and rage. Jill looked like she might actually lunge at me. "Get out," I said. They didn't move, so I walked to the door and opened it. Stood there, silent. Uncle Gary stood too. That was enough. They left, muttering and slamming the door on their way out. I didn't say a word. I just locked the door behind them and stood there for a while. It wasn't relief. It wasn't joy. It was just silence. A clean break. I thought that was the end of it. But the games were just getting started. It started with the phone calls. First from my mom, then Jill, then my dad. Voicemails, texts, long Facebook messages, all of them varying levels of guilt, manipulation, and flat-out insults. I ignored all of it. For 2 days, nothing from me. I didn't respond. I didn't explain. I didn't apologize. That's when the other kind of revenge started. Jill posted a long, vague status on Facebook, something about certain family members who think they're better than everyone else. She said she was grateful to be raised by real parents who taught her love, not pride. The post got likes, I got sympathy comments. A few people messaged me privately to ask what happened. I didn't say a word. Then came the calls to Mason's school. A week later, I got a call from the front office saying someone had reported a concern about Mason's emotional well-being. Anonymous, of course. I knew exactly who it was. They'd stoop to anything. The school counselor met with Mason, said he seemed fine, smart, quiet, respectful, no red flags. I told the counselor there were family issues, and she nodded like she'd heard it before. Then came the group text. My mom created a new thread with extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins. She said she was deeply heartbroken that one of her daughters was cutting off family for no reason. She never named me, but she didn't need to. Uncle Gary replied with just one sentence, "We know exactly what's going on." Jill left the chat 10 minutes later. Then out of nowhere, Doug called me. I didn't even have his number saved. I let it go to voicemail. He said he didn't agree with how everyone else was handling things but wanted to stay neutral and hoped this didn't mean we were cutting off the kids from each other. Like Mason was the problem. I didn't respond. I blocked his number. And then, 10 days after the dinner, my dad showed up at my work. He came into the lobby like he was just running errands, told the receptionist he was there to drop something off. When I came out, he handed me a printed photo. It was from the dinner. Someone had taken a candid of me standing, Mason looking up at me, everyone else in the background either shocked or frozen. My dad had circled himself in red marker and wrote, "This is who you embarrassed." I didn't take the photo. I told him to leave. He didn't say a word, just walked out. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed and finally let myself feel all of it. Not the sadness, but the disbelief that these were my people, that this was the response to me defending my son. I could have burned the whole thing down right then, exposed everything, but I didn't want a war. Not yet. Instead, I made one final effort, a handwritten letter, simple. I mailed it to my parents' house and another to Jill. I said I wanted peace, that I wasn't interested in dragging things out, but I wouldn't be guilt-tripped, blamed, or manipulated anymore. If they wanted to move forward, it had to be mutual, respectful, honest. No response. A week passed. Then I saw it. Another post, this time from my mom's account. A picture of her, Jill, and Jill's kids smiling, hugging, captioned, "Family is everything, even if some forget what that means." That was the final straw. I was done being the quiet one. I was ready to fight back. I didn't feel anger when I saw that photo of my mom and Jill smiling on Facebook. I felt something worse, emptiness. It was like watching people I used to know pretending to be a family that never existed. And the caption, "Family is everything, even if some forget what that means," was the last push I needed. I wasn't going to respond emotionally. No ranting, no drama. I was going to let the truth do the work for me. So, I started gathering. I emailed my landlord and asked for all documentation related to my rent payments toward Jill's apartment. He sent it within the hour, line by line, month by month. 7 months of partial rent, totaling $5,700. I printed it out, highlighted the payments, attached a short summary, and sent it to Jill in a flat manila envelope. No note, no message, nothing extra. 12 minutes later, she texted me a screenshot of her Venmo balance. $34, and just 4 words, "Take me to court then." I didn't answer. Instead, I posted anonymously in a private parenting group I'm in, Real Moms, Real Stories. I asked, "Would you forgive your sister if she took money from you for 7 months, lied, and then publicly humiliated you for setting a boundary?" The responses were overwhelming, hundreds of comments. Most were angry on my behalf. Some shared eerily similar stories. One woman even said, "I tried to forgive mine. I'm still cleaning up the mess she left behind." But what shook me came later that night. A woman I didn't recognize messaged me privately. She said she used to work with Jill at a digital marketing firm and claimed Jill had made up a false HR complaint to get her demoted after a minor disagreement. She lost her job 3 months later. I didn't believe her at first until she sent me a photo from a party. Jill, poolside, wine glass in hand, smiling in a designer dress. The timestamp was from the same weekend Jill told me she was completely broke because Doug had been rushed to the ER. She even asked me for money that day, and I sent her $200. I didn't respond to the woman, but I saved everything. The next day, I found something I hadn't seen in years. While clearing space in the garage, I found an old box from my childhood. Dusty photo albums, loose crayon drawings, and some birthday cards my mom had saved. At the bottom was an envelope that didn't belong. It was addressed to my dad from my mom. The date was nearly 22 years ago, a week after Jill was born. It was handwritten. I wasn't supposed to see it. In the letter, she wrote about how tired she felt after the birth, how overwhelmed she was, but then it got darker. She said she didn't want another child, that she had been content with one. She called me a surprise she wasn't ready for, and then came the part that stopped me cold. I don't think I'll ever bond with this new baby. I feel like I'm faking it. I'm too tired to try. She was talking about me. I sat on the floor for an hour staring at it. I kept thinking back to every time I had to earn her love, beg for attention, sit in the shadow of my sister's chaos while pretending I was fine. It wasn't in my head. It had been there from the beginning. That night, after Mason went to sleep, I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop. I wrote one email. Not emotional, just facts. I listed the money I paid, the messages I received, the lies Jill told, the manipulation, and then I attached a photo of the last page of the letter, just one paragraph. I don't think I'll ever bond with this new baby. I feel like I'm faking it. I'm too tired to try. I hit send. No subject line, no signature, just the truth. Then I blocked all of them, every number, every email, every account. I didn't do it for revenge, I did it for peace. But peace was never their goal. And in less than 48 hours, they found a new way to come for me, one I didn't see coming. The knock on the door didn't even register as a warning. It was 2:40 in the afternoon. I had just finished a work call and was halfway through folding Mason's laundry. I thought it was Amazon or maybe one of the neighbors dropping off misdelivered mail. I wasn't expecting two women in plain clothes flashing badges. Child Protective Services, one of them said. I stared for a second, thinking they had the wrong house, but no, they asked for me by name. Someone had submitted a report, anonymous of course, saying I was leaving Mason home alone for long stretches, that he seemed withdrawn and possibly neglected. I can't even describe the feeling, like ice sliding down your spine while your heart's trying to punch its way out of your chest. But I didn't panic, I let them in. They were professional, careful, not accusatory. They looked around, checked the fridge, looked for signs of neglect. They asked questions, even spoke to Mason's school that same day. The report didn't match reality. Obviously, Mason's room was clean, stocked with books and games. His teachers told him he was well-behaved, doing great in class, even helping other kids when they struggled. The fridge was full, his schedule was structured. And yet, a report like that doesn't just disappear, it stays in the system. His school now had a file. The principal, though sympathetic, had to add an official note. Just a heads up, she told me. Even unfounded reports can trigger automatic escalations if there's a second call. That's when I knew this wasn't a cry for attention. It wasn't family drama anymore. It was war. I went home and sat in silence for over an hour, just staring at the carpet, thinking. Then I called Uncle Gary. I told him everything. The visit, the questions, the way the caseworker apologized on the way out because she knew it was a waste of time. He didn't react the way I expected. He didn't get angry, he just said, "That was the warning shot, you need to move." So I did. I pulled out the receipts, the rent statements, the Venmo screenshots, the party photos with Jill lounging poolside, sipping wine the same weekend she said Doug was in the ER and begged me for help. I printed it all. I organized everything into folders. I even dug up old texts where she thanked me for saving her again. And then, while digging through a box of documents, I found something I'd forgotten about. A handwritten card from Jill for Mason's second birthday. It said, "Thanks for always being the stable one. I'd fall apart without you." Literally. That went in the folder too. Then came the cease and desist. My lawyer was quick. She'd seen cases like this before, where families weaponized false reports to force someone back into control. We sent one to Jill, one to my mom, one to my dad. Each letter detailed the harassment, the online smears, the false CPS claim, the unpaid debt. It made it clear, another move like that, and we were pressing charges. Then the unexpected happened. Doug messaged me. I didn't even know I hadn't blocked him. He sent one thing, a screenshot of a bank transfer for $2,850, exactly half of what I'd paid toward their rent. No note, no apology, just the transaction. A few minutes later, another message came through. I told her to stop. I've moved out. Do whatever you have to do. I stared at it for a long time. Doug was spineless, but this was him jumping ship. Denise called me 2 days later. She said she ran into my mom at the grocery store. She told me my mom looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days, muttering to herself in the baking aisle about me destroying the family. But Denise wasn't having it. She told her, Linda didn't destroy anything, she just finally stopped playing your game. More messages followed. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in 4 years reached out. She said Jill had borrowed $600 from her 6 months ago, promised to pay it back in a week, then blocked her. She saw my name in the Facebook comments and put the pieces together. Another aunt said she once drove 2 hours to pick Jill up after a fight with Doug and never even got a thank you. The more I pulled away, the more the stories came in. Turns out I wasn't the only one they had drained. I was just the last one to say enough. But it wasn't over. I was finally feeling freer, or so I thought, until 2 weeks later, a letter arrived, not from Jill, not from my parents, but from their attorney. And it said one sentence that made my stomach turn: "We are pursuing visitation rights for Mason." They were about to make it legal. They were going after my son. The envelope wasn't thick, but it felt heavy. Heavier than any of the messages, any of the insults, any of the manipulation. Inside was one page, a letter from their attorney, my parents' attorney. They were filing for grandparent visitation rights. They said I was denying them access to Mason out of spite, that I was damaging his emotional development, that I had abruptly and without cause severed all ties with his extended family. They had the nerve to say it was in Mason's best interest to see them. That's when I stopped feeling hurt and started feeling dangerous. I called my lawyer immediately. She read it, paused, and said flatly, "They don't have a case. Arizona law is clear. They have no grounds." But she also said something else. "This isn't legal. It's personal. They're using the courts to scare you, to wear you down." And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about seeing Mason. They didn't care about his well-being. They'd ignored him at the dinner, told me I should have packed him something, handed him a bread basket while their kids ate $800 steaks. This was about control, about reminding me that no matter how far I pulled away, they could still find a way in. That weekend, I got everything in order. First, I filed a formal response through my attorney. We didn't just reject their claim, we attached evidence, screenshots, messages, photos, receipts, the report from CPS that had been closed without findings, all of it. Next, I contacted Mason's school again and added formal documentation. I submitted a list of restricted individuals. My parents and Jill were now banned from all school access. No pickups, no volunteering, nothing. Then I had the locks changed. I didn't stop there. I updated my living will. Denise and Uncle Gary were now the only ones with legal guardianship of Mason if anything ever happened to me. I gave them access to my legal documents, my bank accounts, everything. And finally, I made one last phone call to a friend of mine who worked in social media moderation. I asked if it was possible to track the IP that had submitted the original CPS tip anonymously. She couldn't confirm much, but what she did say was enough. Let's just say it came from a familiar neighborhood. Jill, they tried to ruin me with CPS. That hadn't worked. So now they were trying to use the courts, but this wasn't a game I was going to lose. The night before the court filing was officially rejected, I wrote one last message. It wasn't sent through email, it was printed. I mailed it, one copy to my parents, one to Jill. This is what it said: "This is the last time you'll hear from me. I gave you decades of chances. I helped you. I protected you. I stayed quiet. I played the part. You repaid me with betrayal, lies, and now legal threats aimed at my child. You are no longer my family. If you try to contact me or Mason again, I will pursue a restraining order. If you show up at my door, I will call the police. If you ever attempt to involve yourself in my life again, I will make every detail public. We are done for good." Then I blocked their numbers, blocked their emails, removed mutual contacts, and I erased them. Not out of anger, but survival. I thought I'd feel empty. I thought I'd grieve, but I didn't. I took Mason camping the next weekend, just the two of us. No phones, no noise, just trees, sky, and quiet. He toasted a marshmallow, grinned, and said, "You seem happier." I was. We were finally safe, finally free. And no matter what came next, I knew one thing for certain: